Good morning, Zio here, and today we will be continuing our WoW versus Final Fantasy XIV set of videos, right? Um, and today we're going to be talking about, as I view my notes because I don't remember suddenly, classes and jobs, alt accessibility and such, right? Things like that sort of nature between the two games, right? Because we've got a lot to go through. We're gonna get to like different mechanics the games have introduced, what they've done with them, among other stuff, of course, as well. So go ahead and grab yourself some coffee, sit back, relax, and let's get into it, shall we? Yeah, so before we get started, what actually got me to try out Final Fantasy XIV, right? It was actually a simple thing. So a few years back, I ran across some videos, or maybe 3 years back, I don't remember. Anyway, that was done by Hills versus Babyface As, right? Over there, where he compared World of Warcraft, ESO, and FF14. And for the most part, I never really gave FF14 a chance, right? I heard that it was coming out, and when it came down to it, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to give it a shot. Then I did eventually proceed to waste my money on, what was it, Rift, and then Aeon, and a few other MMOs that I did try and then didn't actually do, never stuck with. But anyway, point is, I had played Final Fantasy XI. I can't remember who it was, but somebody had let me play Final Fantasy XI because they were playing that, and they're like, you should totally come play Final Fantasy XI. It's way better than World of Warcraft and all that stuff. And I spent a little bit playing their character and was like, yeah, no, this sucks. To be quite frank, Final Fantasy XI sucks, in my opinion. It was a different game, right? The way they did things, the way they did their classes and all this other stuff, and it was so slow compared to what I was used to with the WoW. And I was just like, no, I'm good. I'm playing a superior product over here. I'm going to stick with that. And, even today, I still think that is, if you like Final Fantasy XI, that's fine. Kudos to you. Just wasn't my thing, right? Then I heard Final Fantasy XIV was coming out. I was like, ooh, I love Final Fantasy, right? I'm a huge Final Fantasy fanboy as well as a Blizzard fanboy, of course. And, I think I might want to give that a try. Then I heard of the disastrous launch. It was bad, a lot of issues, this, that, and the other. I was like, no, that's fine. I'm good. Never mind. Dodged a bullet there. Whew. Anyway, so I then, of course, ran across those videos a few years back and was like, this game is nothing like what I heard it being, right? The things that it has in it, just the way it looks and all this other stuff. And I think I heard wrong. So going into it and looking at it in a very, very brief history of what happened, the game launched, Final Fantasy 14 1.0 launched, and it was disastrous. There were still players, of course, right? People did love it, but to the wider player base, it wasn't cutting it to everyone else, and it was definitely not going to take on WoW in that state. So they shut it down. They shut it down for about I think what it was, 2 years. They brought in somebody named Yoshi P, who came in, and what he did in his first thing there was tell the devs to go play World of Warcraft and then come back, and we're going to start working on this, right? And this was back during the Cataclysm Draenor days, I believe. No, Cataclysm Pandora. Sorry, Pandora days. Then Draenor. Anyway, but yeah, this was back during that time, and then they came back and they made a much better MMO and to replace it. Essentially, they then relaunched it. They did some things here and there for people who were there originally and stuff, and it is what it is today now, right? So let's go ahead and talk about classes and jobs. To swap classes, or to swap classes in WoW, it is very simple. You essentially have to go in, make a new character, and then you've got this list of 15 different characters, right? Or whatever's here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. Anyway, a bunch of characters, right? This is how you swap jobs or swap classes in World of Warcraft. Now, of course, each class also has a spec, and then each spec has the talents, the talent, not the talent tree, the talent columns, if you will, and that is something that I do kind of like, right? This is one thing that I wouldn't mind if Final Fantasy had, was the ability to have different specs into a thing, because I would like to play a certain class like Gunbreaker, but I'm not much of a tank, right? I back in the day during Wrath of the Lich King, during Wrath, right? I tanked, I healed, I DPS'd, and I did it all. I was pre-specking because this was before dual spec was a thing, and then they introduced dual spec, and I was like, my wallet can finally rest a little bit. And I was a goblin on the auction house and all this other stuff, so I had lots of money, was always respecting all this other things, and it was a pain in the ass. But yeah, so that's how they do it. I kind of wish Final Fantasy 14 had a way to do that, because I would like to play, as I was saying, Gunbreaker or something, but I'm not much of a tank, and Gunbreaker is a tank and only a tank. That's the biggest difference right there. But yeah, if you want to make a new spec, you essentially have to you know create a new character, and pick a new job, create a new character, and all that good stuff. And I don't know what I'm clicking on here, and do it that way. That's how you do it in World of Warcraft. You see here, you've got all these classes here, you got these races, which is something we could also bring up, races and things, and talk about that. But which is another thing I want to gripe about a little bit on the WoW side, is races. Just saying. But you've got your races, you got to pick your class here, and that's how you do it. You level it up through 1 to max level, and so on and so forth. And Final Fantasy 14 is a bit different. The jobs, as they're called, because instead of classes, they're jobs, so that's the difference right there, are changeable by a click of a button, essentially. As you can see here, we've got a guy who is essentially clicking on these buttons over here he's got set, that is swapping his job every time he clicks it. It brings it in, it changes, and the way you change your job here, if you look at this picture here, they've got a frying pan looking thing here, because they're a culinarian right now, which in World of Warcraft, that would be the cooking profession, right? So yeah, even professions have jobs, and they're considered their own classes in Final Fantasy 14. But in order to swap that out, essentially you are swapping out your main hand weapon. So you put a gun blade in, you become a gun breaker. You put a katana in, you're a samurai. You put a gun in, you're a mechanist, so on and so forth. The other thing is down here in the corner, which the culinary classes don't have, in their job crystals. These are the things that you have to go and unlock through a tiny little quest line, real quick kind of deal, which will then give you the crystal to be able to actually actively use that job. So when you swap that, the crystal will swap automatically, and you will be doing that job, and that's how that works. So just being able to swap like that is a lot easier than it is on WoW, because in WoW, for me to go from, say, playing my rogue to my druid, I would have to log out, collect my druid, log back in, so on and so forth. In Final Fantasy 14, I just click a button, boom, I'm playing whatever it is that I want to play. The downside, of course, with all that, as I mentioned, is it has one spec, right? In World of Warcraft, we have multiple specs. We've got 3, unless you're a druid with 4, because druids are freaking amazing. we've got specs that we can swap between. So, if you're playing your druid and you want to go guardian and tank, you can go guardian and tank. If you want to go resto and heal, you can go resto and heal. If you want to go melee DPS, you can go feral. If you want to go range DPS, you can go balanced. Right, so we've got all that. But for Final Fantasy 14, it's a bit different. You want to go range DPS, you go find yourself, you go and get the job for black mage or something, right? Or you go and get bard or archer, whatever, whatever part of the thing you're on, right? Because Final Fantasy 14 was also doing another thing when it first launched, where you've got these jobs, and then those jobs turn into better jobs, and then if you level up certain jobs and all this other stuff, it will unlock other jobs and things. It's an interesting system. If you need to, if you're not sure on how that goes, go ahead and look up Final Fantasy Tactics and look up how to unlock jobs there, where you may have to have a job at a certain level and another job at a certain level in order for this particular job to unlock and things like that. That was the system they were going with. However, they did decide not to go with that anymore because of, I guess, how complicated it was. And in my opinion, one of the best things that a game can do, for one, is set itself up in a way where you don't have to use external sources to learn things, right? And unfortunately, with that kind of system, that required you to go to an external source to learn things. So as they've cut that out, it's no longer an issue. You just have to go find the quest. And with each expansion, they add a few more jobs to it, which then means the requirements are usually a particular level requirement. Like I think, what is it, Samurai is 50. After you hit 50, you go to one of the major cities. You can then train into Samurai and take on that class. And do that. And they, and Limsa Laminza, they've got, like, at level 10, I think you can go and train to be a rogue, which then upgrades at 30 to the ninja class, right? Is it ninja? Gosh, it's been a hot minute since I played, so forgive me. But that's how they did that. And then you've got all these different jobs. You've got, like, Dragoon, that's a melee DPS. Mechanist, range DPS, Paladin, Marauders, Warriors, things like that, which are tanks, healers, the White Mage, Astrologian, Scholar. You've got Summoner, which is more of a magic range DPS with pets. Think somewhat of a Warlock-ish type thing. And that's how they do it. Unfortunately, they just have the one spec. And it works great for what it is, because this way you're not having to balance out 3 separate specs on one particular job. That's a problem that we have with World of Warcraft a lot, right? And I mean a lot. There's always going to be one spec that outshines the other, even by a small margin, because we're all about those numbers, right? For those big deeps. But that's the problem with that particular thing, is balance, and it's really hard to do when you've got something that is so OP as a marksman hunter versus a survival hunter. Nobody's going to play the survival hunter. It's like a wasted thing. So then next patch, they fix it, and then suddenly the survival hunter might be a little bit more OP than the marksman hunter, then everybody swaps over, and it's just this constant catch-up game that Blizzard is constantly having to doing. I love the fact that I can just sort of pick what I want to do with my character, spec-wise, whether, it be the monk and being a tank, but then playing a paladin as DPS or something, or a healer. Final Fantasy 14 unfortunately does not have that ability. Every class is its own spec, and it does what it's going to do. So if you want to heal, you've essentially got 3 jobs that you can pick from to heal until Endwalker comes out, because I think the Sage, which is one of the new classes, who has some floating guns on the back, that should totally be a mechanist thing, by the way. Little jelly on that. Yeah. So they're also, I believe, supposed to be a healer, right? A healer of some type with shields and things. Kind of feels like a, what is it? Isn't that how the Scholar heals? Anyway, could be wrong on that. But yeah, you know, that's going to be another healer for healers to pick from. If you want a tank, essentially, you've got three classes to pick from. You've got the paladin, you've got the marauder or the warrior, and you've got I'm sorry, the warrior, and then you have the gunbreaker. Those are essentially the three tanks right now. Everything else, DPS. Or some, you know, kind of DPS slash support kind of thing, like say the bard, for instance, which you know, is what archery turns into. You know, you become an archer, you then become a bard at 30, so you play some soothing sounds and stuff to boost different things while in the middle of weaving in your attacks, and among other things. But yeah, so when it comes down to it, they definitely have their differences, right? Uh, Blizzard's issue, of course, with that is always the balance. While Final Fantasy 14 doesn't give you a choice, other than you know, the job itself. That's a thing. But at the same time, we have another thing to talk about, which is alt friendliness, right? Alt accessibility, I guess. Gosh, we gone on for like 15 minutes just on classes and jobs, and that's not even an in-depth thing, right? For alts. Now, if you were to have an alt on World of Warcraft, this is what you would do right here. You'd go in, make yourself a new character, pick a thing, and then start. And you're going to start in a starting zone, right? So, you know, you start in the starting zone. You've got to play these quests. Now you go through these quests, go on to the next zone, go through those quests, go on to the next zone, so on and so forth, and things like that. Do some dungeons in between when you hit 15, and level up. And then when you get to end game, well, if your main has already done it, you got to do it again, right? Now somebody is probably going to say, no, wait, the current expansion in patch 9 point what, anyway. So yeah, they, in this current expansion, they talked about alt friendliness. However, they haven't implemented it yet, right? Or they're about to implement it in the next patch or something. I can't really remember. Or maybe they implemented it in the last patch. Anyway, point is, when it launched, it did not have any of the stuff they said it was going to have for alt friendliness, where they can skip, you know, the campaign quests and all this other stuff. And I think that was another major downfall on Blizzard right there. You said we were going to have alt friendliness, where I could come in, you know, with my one of my ults and not have to slog through the storyline again, not have to go through all of this and all of that, and you know, because I've already done it. I've done it on my main. Why should I have to do it again? And that's another thing when it comes to WoW, is it fails in that aspect, is just alt friendliness, between all the different mechanics and all this other stuff. Like, you know, you've got to unlock this, unlock that, unlock this, and you know, your alt doesn't have any of it unlocked. They have to go through all the stuff again to attempt to unlock it or find it. And that was a really big issue, especially with the last expansion, because of the way they have done armor and all this other stuff, that, you know, once you've gone through and you've done the unlocks to have access to it, you've got to go through it all over again, regrind all that currency again to then unlock it for your alt. And that sucks so much. That has been a issue with players for a very long time, is the fact that it is so alt unfriendly, and it's been like that for quite some time now, right? You know, nothing really carries over or anything, and you've got to redo all the different stuff again. With Final Fantasy 14, it's way different. The Final Fantasy 14 is purely alt friendly by default, because you don't need an alt. Essentially, it is one character to rule them all, I think is how a lot of people put it. But as you can see here, you know, that this person is swapping through, you know, is swapping through the different classes, right? You know, paladin, you know, black mage, whatever, and stuff, and they go through and they just swap classes, because it's alt friendly. Each class has its own you know, level to it, so it's not like if you swap from a level 60 gunbreaker and then swap to a white mage is going to be level 60. No, white mage is going to be whatever level you leveled it up to, right? But there's also the MSQ, and the MSQ, of course, is the story portion of Final Fantasy XIV. You don't have to redo it. You can go straight into doing other things. You can level it up a variety of different ways, but you're not forced to go through the story campaign over and over and over again. And I think it's kind of funny, I guess, in a way, that one of the things I could probably do blindfolded or in my sleep is level up a brand new character in World of Warcraft. Yeah, sure, the Cataclysm came and stuff, but I've done those quests over and over and over and over again on so many different alts that I don't even need Azeroth autopilot to do it. I can just and be fine. I can put Netflix up over here or something, watch a movie, watch a TV show or something, and barely look at my computer for the most part, or look at my other screen over here for the most part to, check on my guy, because one, he's probably not going to die anyway, because the way they've set up WoW these days, combined with the different, what are the, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, special things you can buy that boost like experience and all this other stuff. Although they did change how that interacted, I think, with stuff recently too, in this last expansion. But anyway, point is, I can just put myself on autopilot, which is, another thing. World of Warcraft has a add-on called Azeroth Autopilot for a reason, right? It doesn't automatically do it for you. It just tells you where to go and points you in the correct direction for the most efficient way to level. And WoW, that's a problem. In Final Fantasy XIV, not so much. Once I've unlocked the Coils of Bahamut, I've got access to the Coils of Bahamut once I hit the level threshold, right? Or I can go in. I'm pretty sure I can go in like unsynced with somebody much higher level and do that too. I'm not fully versed in the unsyncing method of stuff, but once you've unlocked the ability to access it in Final Fantasy XIV, you've got access to it. And since you don't need an alt to go and say, I want to play Gunbreaker today, better roll up an alt, or I want to play Mechanist today, better roll up an alt. You don't have to do that with Final Fantasy XIV. It's very, very alt friendly, and in WoW we have things like time walking too, right? In World of Warcraft we have time walking. It happens on a fixed sort of calendar for a weekend or whatnot. With Final Fantasy XIV, that's not the case. Time walking happens all the time over there. The way they've set things up and bring things down. So if somebody I'm playing with is level 20 running a level 20 dungeon, I can join them and then bring myself down to their. It will automatically put us in there, automatically bring me down to their level or the highest level for the dungeon, that sort of thing. And then we can go on from there at that point. So it's incredibly alt friendly. But you know what? I think this one's run on a little bit long. We've got a lot more to talk about, so I think I'll end it there. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and we'll talk to you later. See ya.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment, smash that like button, and always subscribe for more. And of course, there are other videos floating around somewhere on the screen, so click one of those and see if you can find something that suits your fancy. Till then, I'll see you later. Bye.